Our entire goal was based on strategic repatriation of Artsakh. So we didn't do anything, and we still do not do anything outside of Artsakh. In fact, up until the 2016 war, everything we did was in the liberated territories. And not only that, but it was also in strategic locations of the liberated territories. So we even designed a map of all of Armenia, including the Mars of Artsakh, the district of Artsakh. And on the map, we had the red dots showing all of the strategic locations where we need to have denser population. And we coordinated the development of that map with the government of Artsakh. And we wanted to make sure that that concept, or that basically philosophy is not only ours, but everybody adopts it. The entire nation adopts it, because we knew that we would never we would never complete the liberation of Artsakh as a nation if we don't live in those lands.
Absolutely.
And fact is, 28 years after liberation, we never really liberated it, because there were no more than 150,000 people living in Artsakh on September 27, 2020. So the fact is that had we had a population of 500,000,
double that or triple that,
It's funny you mentioned that.
Everything would have been different. I could basically bring Artsakh into people's homes and families and living rooms. And I can tell you this, we are all guilty as a nation, including the diaspora. I don't know whether it's 5 million or 10 million, it doesn't matter. But very few, were educated enough, knowledgeable enough about Artsakh.
Yeah.
So sympathy and love comes with knowledge. If you're not familiar with your own country, with your homeland, I don't know what you're going to love. You're going to love the idea of the homeland, but homeland is people, right? I mean, it's not the stones and the rocks and the mountains. As historic as Dizag is, we left those people basically completely unattended. We left them. We ignored them for 28 years. Our historic towns and villages that we spent an incredible amount of energy and resources and blood liberating in the 90s, and we never really completed that liberation. And when I say we're all guilty of it as a nation, that includes the successive governments of Armenia, obviously, and they had a huge role to play in educating the locals, Armenian citizens, but also educating the diaspora. None of that happened. And whatever effort was put in to repopulate Artsakh strategically, I'm not saying no effort was put in, and we were certainly not the only ones doing it, but it was just a handful of organizations who were seriously doing it.
I'm sure.
On a consistent basis.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, we were one of them, but we were just one of the few. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter it doesn't even matter what your mother language is. Even if you're in Australia, Sydney, and you don't speak Armenian that well or at all, but if you feel Armenian, okay, then you're part of our country. Even if you're not a citizen of Armenia, it doesn't matter. We have to create a whole ideology and push that ideology, starting from the government to the diaspora organizations to just individuals like us, which is based on the simple fact that every Armenian needs to make Armenia the epicenter of their life. If Armenia is not the epicenter of every Armenian's life, then they're not Armenian. Sorry, but they're not Armenian. The diaspora might think, many diasporans I know think that Armenia needs our help, right? Needs the diaspora's help, whether it's financial or any other way, political. Yes, there's no question the diaspora has put a lot of effort into helping Armenia over the last 30 years. But the reverse is also true, and we have not taken advantage of that. The assimilation of the diaspora in generations, that's happening really fast on the west side of in the Western world, could have been a lot slower. Had it been had we applied that ideology nationally, where Armenia would become basically the center of our lives. Our national resources, and I listed some of them specifically, need to be focused on Armenia. Because at the end of the day, if we want to maintain the diaspora and Armenia together, as long as we can, the diaspora, because the diaspora is a fact, we can't get away from it. We need to make Armenia stronger, because Armenia is the strongest resource we have, not only to maintain our homeland and our national identity, but also through Armenia, we can help the diaspora survive longer. Wherever we live, okay? Yeah, if we can go back and live in Armenia. In some cases, I think Armenians should not go back to Armenia because they can better serve Armenia living where they are.
I agree with you. In some cases, yes.
But we've got resources. We're a people. We're a nation. We've got everything from scientists to technologists to engineers to architects to medical professionals. We've got a whole nation of people who are basically melting like the ice in the summer of heat in Saudi Arabia.
Let's go back to let's talk about Support Our Heroes. Now, I believe 2016 when the 4-day war broke out, that's where you guys kind of started the movement, I would say, right?
The reality on the ground was so bad. Just the front lines, and I had worked with the Army for years, but I had never really come to that, I guess. I had never really realized how bad some of the logistical and medical needs were the Army had. So I immediately went back to Stepanakert and I went back to the ministry, Defense Ministry, and I said, we got problems. What do you need? What can we do to help? And then a list was formed of the things they needed, everything from sleeping bags to rain ponchos to, tents, and one thing led to another, and canteens, military canteens, and then just thousands of other items. And eventually we ended up, donating complete brand new Toyota SUVs, Land Cruiser, complete mobile hospitals, which the Army had none, literally none. They were using old $10,000, really old, beat up medical evacuation, machines that were basically cars or vans that were basically not even ambulances. You can't call those ambulances. That's why I'm describing it this way, because they had an oxygen tank and a small medical bag. That's it. That's all they had. So if you were seriously injured on the front line, chances are you would die by the time you get to the nearest hospital or medical center. So I saw all that in a very condensed way within a few days when I was in hot truth on the front lines, and I said, no, this cannot go on. So I stopped all the work we were doing on the civilian side, and I called some friends, and I called Harach and other friends, and I said, look, we got to help. There's some serious needs on the logistical side, and then we started helping on the medical side, and one thing led to another. People got together, and the group got larger and larger, and people believed in what we were doing. We don't have the resources, the time, and we're all busy like you are. We've got our lives and our businesses, and we're 100% volunteers. Our board, people like Edgar, everything we do is based on volunteer, time and effort and knowledge. So it's tough. But we all play our part. We've got a board of directors which is comprised of people both in Armenia and the U.S. And also Europe. We all play our part. Some of us just raise funds and do PR, whether it's PR for what we do or for mainly the cause of what we do, and others are basically doing the work on the ground. I guess I'm guilty of that. We don't sponsor or develop and sponsor projects and raise funds because it's popular to do. We've never done that. In fact, we've done some of the most unpopular and hardest, toughest, most challenging projects in Artsakh that no one else wanted to touch.
For example?
Regions of Artsakh where we do work right now, where we've done work, where we've done work before 2020, before 2016, they've always been the hardest to reach, and I was
nobody wanted
that
to go
example.
there.
It was a 3-hour drive from the post, from the border of Syunik and Artsakh, and a rough ride, a really rough ride. So no one had ever visited that village in 30 years, let alone build a school there. So my mentality and the mentality of all of our board members and my dear friends has been, we need to do what no one else wants to touch. We need to do what's most important for Artsakh, not what's convenient for us to do. Otherwise, we can go to a school and rebuild a school in Yerevan or Vanadzor or Spidag or whatever. And there's plenty of needs there. It isn't like there aren't any needs. But the fact is, the hardest work to do is in Artsakh, has always been. And before this war, we did anything and everything we did was either with the military or with on the liberated territories, which were the farthest, the hardest work to be done. The most challenging, just higher risk, costlier, because you spend more money when you're driving 4 hours away from Stepanakert to get anything done. So, and the risks are higher. But the reality is that's where the needs were. So our priority has always been Artsakh's priority, and it's still the case today. Today we're building a whole new community, basically a new community inside the Nakhchivannik village. Where is Nakhchivannik? It's literally a half a kilometer away, a few hundred meters away from the Azeri soldiers on the front line with Agna. It's challenging to live in Nakhchivannik, and it's challenging for us. But we believe that Artsakh is in Stepanakert. We believe, in fact, we don't do anything in Stepanakert that's not military. We do work in Mardakert. Today, Mardakert is about 95 kilometers away with the new road away from Stepanakert. It used to be a 40-minute drive. Now it's an hour and 40-minute drive. Like city of Mardakert. So Mardakert is now, Dumbak city, Artsakh, and no one wants to do anything there. And there are very few individuals and organizations who even drive to Mardakert because the drive there is also dangerous. The fact is, you're under sniper. Turkish snipers, Azeri snipers, are looking down on you from a couple of hundred meters when you're driving through. We do not. I've never thought we have, even us, even myself, even like people like ourselves who are constantly in touch and constantly working in Artsakh. I don't believe we have the moral or any other right to complain, because if we're going to complain, then what should the people who live in Artsakh, the wives, the widows who have lost their husbands in the war, who've got 2-3 little children in the house, who have no income, who've lost their house and their husband, what should they say? Who are we to complain? And I'm not even talking about diaspora Armenians. I'm talking about Armenians who live in Armenia. I'm talking about myself. So we need to really put things in perspective here. Yes, we have the right to be upset. We have the right to be maybe a second a day. We all have the right to be demoralized, but that shouldn't last more than a second or two. Mardakert is the forgotten city today, and we're doing everything possible to keep people in Mardakert, especially with the road being so long today to get there. And we're also doing work in Askeran. We're building a new community of 16 brand new homes, 140 square meter, we're talking about 1,500 square feet, with a bunker. Each one has its own reinforced bunker. And we're also building another project right now in Nakhchivannik, which is an IT center, which we're just about to complete. And it's going to be the first of its kind. It's very unique. It's going to be a co-working center after they graduate from our school. So we're building...
So it's a program connected to it.
It's a program where...
Very cool.
Kids from 16 to 30 years old, people, youngsters, they can join our program. They'll go through a test, and then once they qualify, they'll join it. We'll be training them, giving them IT education, there's a little bit of English language and a lot of IT, whether it's basic IT and some front end, some back end, and then eventually 10 months later, 11 months later, they'll graduate, and we will transfer them from one side of the building to the other side with a different entrance, and that'll be a co-working center. And in the co-working center, they'll be working for Yerevan-based organizations, but sitting in our co-working center in their village,
remotely, basically,
without leaving.
Yeah.
I strongly believe, in not just in my heart, but also in my mind, that we're going to be able to go through these tough times. And sooner or later, we will have enough strength, and the political climate is going to be such that we will. And I know this is going to be, anybody who hears this from me is going to say, what a romantic. This guy doesn't even know what he's talking about. They'll say anything. But you know what? If we went through the 1915 genocide, and 3 years later we were able to reestablish our political entity, our country as a country, 700 years after losing our
kingdom.
Yeah.
If we went through that and we lost more than half our nation, and with 650,000 people, we were able to forge a new country, on a small part of Armenia in 1918, we can go through this. We will go through this. And I believe it in my mind that we will go through this. And I also believe that we'll see it ourselves. I'm not talking 50 years from now, 100 years from now. I'm talking in the next 10 to 15 years, we will be in a position to re-liberate what we've lost in Artsakh. We will be able to get Artsakh back all the way down to the Ox River, including Karavajar and Kashatagh, because we're a nation and they're not.